All right, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. I'm happy to have everyone here to share our group's presentation on engineering application and research skills as a pathway to local innovation. My name is Jennifer DeBoer. I'm a professor at Purdue University, and I'm happy and honored to be joined by my colleagues, my research associate, Dinesh Radhakrishnan, Sally Kamani, the program director of the Tumaini Innovation Center in Eldoret, Kenya, and Juvenal Mboni Hankuye, the director of Youth Education and Sports, a refugee-led community-based organization in Kakuma, Kenya. And all three of our organizations have collaborated together for the past 7 years, developing an integrated research and applied experience for youth transitioning through different areas of secondary education into further opportunities, which we'll be talking about more today. But we wanted to start with the voices of the youth themselves. So we'll start with a video of youth actually describing the engineering process they have gone through. And I would ask that you as the audience think about what you're hearing, and while the video is going on, share in the chat some of the things that stand out to you as they describe the way that they identified the problem, the technical problem they were faced with, thought about how to solve it, and then actually implemented their solution. So think about what you're hearing and type it in the chat.
How you install the solar panels up there?
So first of all, we identify and see where is the problem actually in Tumaini. And then we came and found the problem is electricity loss. So there's sometimes maybe once a week or twice a week, electricity goes, and it gone for a long time. So it's like we came and realized, found an idea, how can we solve that problem as engineer. And then we came and we decided to use a solar panel. And then we just learned through modules, classes, which there's a curriculum called QDEX we are using to learn. So we learn about how to install a solar panel, how the energy of solar, how can you fix a solar and how can you make it. And we calculate the power that Tumaini need to light all the bulbs at Tumaini during at night. And then we found the calculation. And then we came up and installed the solar panel.
So you're hearing from Kevin, who's one of the senior most students at Tumaini, talk through the identification of a local need, the technical process they went through, and the application of their knowledge to a local innovation. One of the things I want to highlight is that the students, the graduates that you see sharing here, are actually former street youth or homeless or unaccompanied youth in Kenya. And our program has focused on what local innovations can come out from student leaders who are displaced themselves. So experiencing displacement and learning to see themselves as local innovators and applying solutions to their newfound local space. So to contextualize what displacement is and the scale of displacement, I have a short question to get us started here. So we'll do this poll just in the chat. How many people are displaced worldwide? So I'll just ask you to enter the number in the chat. What is the total number of displaced people worldwide? To give you some context or benchmark, in the year 2000, this number was approximately 20 million people globally. So 20 years onwards, how many people are displaced worldwide? We have 45 million, 200 million, 30 million. Another minute to share. 40 million. So some folks are thinking that this number may have doubled from the year 2000. See some guesses on the higher side that this has gone up by a factor of 10. So if you go to the next slide, we actually have the figures as per UNHCR from the end of 2021. This number was close to 83 million people worldwide. So this is at the end of 2021. So exactly, Eleanor. So this doesn't even include Ukraine, which is another approximately upwards of 5 to 7 million people who have been displaced. So right now, there's about 94 million people worldwide, over 10,000 people, close to 11,000 people an hour, if you divide that up. So during the time of this presentation, the scale of displacement of people around the world who have been uprooted has gone up by 11,000. So keep that number in your head as we're thinking about how many people are experiencing displacement and what this means to uprooting innovators from one location and asking them to move to another space. I want to also ask, just so that we have an understanding of who's in the audience, if you could just briefly share your type of work, your sector or area in education. And you can just type this in the chat box. And this will give us, as our presenting team, just a sense of who's in the audience, who we can connect with during the presentation or after, and just how to tailor the kinds of comments that we'd like to share. So you could just take a minute and provide us with a sense of who is here amongst the, looks like we have about 15 folks besides the presenters here. So I see, hi Jill, welcome. Higher Ed and Youth Team, USAID Uganda. Hi Eleanor, Technical Advisor at FHI 360. Welcome, welcome. Hi Darren, over in DC at American University. Nice to see you. Folks, a few more seconds. As I go forward, feel free to keep sharing in the chat so that we can continue to see who's here. Hi Tewodros, USAID and Ethiopia, and greetings to Richard from USAID Center for Education and Higher Education. Great, so welcome everybody. Hi there, Diana. So to give a sense for the presentation, our group has come together around this collaboration that integrates research, learning, and practice, where we are localizing and integrating engineering in displacement. So we're working with displaced learners, and that can be homeless or unaccompanied youth, refugees, internally displaced people, recognizing that the need for technical and technological solutions is best understood and therefore best created by the learners who are experiencing displacement, marginalization, systemic oppression. They, because of their experiences, are best suited to determine how to meet their technical needs. We also focus on this transition point where youth are transitioning from different types of secondary technical or academic secondary education into different tertiary learning opportunities. So we'll talk about the different pathways that our program has built over the years. And again, we're sitting at this nexus of practice and research. So the three presentations you'll hear touch on research, learning, and practice as an integrated set of aims and not as separate issues. So given the innovative pathway that we've developed over the last 7 years amongst the three partners here and the numerous other partners that each of our organizations and our collaborations have connected with, we focused on street youth, refugees, and internally displaced people, and we'll walk through three specific areas of our work. So on the next slide, you'll note that the components of this presentation are really nested within each other. We're going to start from talking about the student expertise and the student focus. The student environment is what we call an ABCD, active, blended, collaborative, and democratic environment. So Dinesh will be talking about how that environment has been constructed and what it consists of. Then zooming out from the student perspective, we'll talk about the expertise of the teachers in our localized engineering and displacement curriculum. The teacher-focused component really collectivizes local teachers' expertise and prioritizes their relevant knowledge. So Sally, as both a leader and a teacher herself at Tumaini, is going to share, again, both the research and practice perspective on the instructor's expertise. And then finally, zooming out further, we found that research and meaningful scholarship generation has been vital to our work. And this has included working across organizations, working with partners in locally focused consortia. So Juvenal will be talking about the participatory research approaches and the ways in which we've coordinated across institutions to conduct research that really is led by displaced students themselves. Our intended outcomes of this presentation are really to encourage and challenge everyone in the audience to integrate different theoretical perspectives around critical pedagogy, community of practice, and localized knowledge, to think about how higher education pathways and indeed tertiary pathways, whatever different paths those might be, can support the assets of displaced youth in solving technical problems, solving community challenges, and really creating cohesive communities. I would encourage everyone to, as we go through, to think about this as an opportunity to reflect and engage in critical dialogue. Please share questions in the chat. And as I'm facilitating, I'll be monitoring those, and I'll be sure to come back to those during the Q&A. And we will share additional materials under session resources, so please do check those out after the presentations. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dinesh, and thank you again for being here, and thanks Dinesh for being a part of this panel.
Great, thank you so much, Jennifer. Hi everyone, good morning from Florida. I will be talking about the student-facing component of the engineering program, but before I start to talk about the particular ABCD approach and model that we have designed, I want to give the context a little bit by answering two different questions. One is, why engineering in displacement? Why should we be thinking about engineering and displacement? And second, what is the approach or model that we use in order to implement engineering in displacement? So first, to address the bigger question of why we should be thinking about engineering and displacement, we've come to realize that engineering is uniquely situated as a field that overlaps with respect to many skill sets and competencies that youth and communities actually need. This overlap could be seen either from some of the global frameworks, such as the 21st century skills, or even national level frameworks when it comes to the competency-based curriculum in Kenya, or the new curriculum models in India, and some of the skill sets and competencies that's been highlighted very clearly overlaps with what engineering could help students develop as the knowledge, skills, and attitudes. This includes, for example, all the way from very specific technical skill sets to be able to tackle local problems and create local innovations, all the way towards building professional competencies, such as to be able to work in teams, interpersonal skills and communication, and socio-emotional skills. So we've come to see these kinds of overlaps very clearly, and as a result, our students to be able to take these skill sets and apply it in the pathways that they choose for themselves. So that's broadly thinking about why engineering is relevant in the context of displacement. But how do we actually go ahead and apply implementing engineering, learning, and teaching programs in these contexts. So in the next slide, I'll talk about our design process, but also very specifically our values, which kind of has come to co-evolve and coexist right now together. So for example, the first and most important value for us is to build collaborative and reciprocal relationships with our partners and community organizations who we directly work with. We spend a considerable amount of time initially just ensuring that our philosophies align, our models work and match, and our expectations meet, and understand the kind of collaborative requirements and also the thematic areas through which we can partner. And once we are able to establish the partnership, then comes the importance of understanding the assets. So we basically design our program through an asset-based framework by looking at the assets in the community, assets of the students, the teachers, and the participating members and stakeholders in a specific context. When I talk about assets, we look at multiple different forms of assets. One, it's the community assets, which could be physical, infrastructural, but also it's human, mental, and psychological that the students in these contexts carry with themselves because they possess unique skills as a result of the situations that they are in that directly applies to how they could learn a program like engineering and apply it for their own benefit and for their own community. For a specific example, one of the things we're doing more and more now is to understand the local knowledge that are actually displaced with the communities and the people when they are displaced, and how do we understand how they possess those knowledge that could be integrated into our curriculum as a result of close collaborations. Once we understand the assets, we place a huge amount of importance on contextualizing our curriculum, making our learning relevant. This includes ensuring that the course content is integrated with the assets that we have identified, with the kind of skill sets and intended learning outcomes that we foresee, and also the technology that we use and implement in each of these contexts are relevant, and also the support materials, both for the students and teachers, are made sure that they are contextualized and relevant as well. Then we look at partnership and running the program more as a long-term opportunity than as a one single course or one single program. So that allows for multiple iterations of the program, which could lead to product development, innovations, and sustainable pathways for these communities. Last but not least, and also the most important, is we center and focus on student agency and their pathways at the core of our both our approach towards the curriculum and pedagogical model, but also overall program and the outcomes and the impacts that we like to see. So having said that, so we'll talk about how at the core, the student agency and student participation in the program paves path for how we structure and design the program. So that forms our curricular and pedagogical approach in the next slide. Where you can see on the left-hand side, the diagram that at the core of our model is the students scoping the local problems. So we start with this by working with the students closely, understanding from their perspective what they think is most important problems that they need to identify and solve in their local communities. This ranges all the way from, similar to the video you just saw where Kevin and Benga were talking from Tumaini about electricity issues, to water-related issues or agriculture-related issues, or some of the social issues such as education in these contexts, and also skill development and more access to resources. So whatever the students think and relevant, and they scope the problem, which then leads to and builds on to a democratic component of our ABCD process, as they start by engaging as equal stakeholders in the design and decision-making process, and continue to help us localize the curriculum, but through the asset mapping activities and through participating consistently as somebody who assists in the design of the entire program itself. And we combine these elements with the three broader pedagogical approach or techniques that's proven successful over the years, which is the active, blended, and collaborative models. We integrate a number of active learning strategies into our curriculum, including hands-on experiences, more experiment-based visual learning tools. And then we integrate blended tools through technology options where the students are able to both access offline and online content and learn at the ways that most benefits them and at the times that most benefits them. And we build in more collaborative components where the students continue to work in teams and work with their community more closely in learning and applying the knowledge and skill sets. And at the outer periphery, we place importance on the core learning outcomes and the core learning components of the course, which includes the engineering design process, the specific technical contents that they require and knowledge of which is needed to apply to solve the problem, and the professional skills, as I mentioned, about the teamwork, communication, and other interpersonal skills. As a result, of this curricular and pedagogical approach and being able to use this, we also understand what are the different ways through which students come to the program in these displaced contexts, and then how do they benefit as a result of participating in, and how do they exit the program, and what kind of pathways do they choose, and how can they connect with. So we work a little bit very closely with the community organization and the local institutions in the places that we work to set up these pathways and allow the opportunity for the students to be the better decision makers for what would they like to do. I want to give a quick overview of, so I talked about the program, but where have we implemented this program, and what are the different contexts and who are the different communities we worked with. So just to give you a quick snapshot, we'll categorize this through different parts. So first, the program, the category, and the population, I'll talk about very specific to that. So if we click once, thank you, Shane. So the program we call as the Localized Engineering and Displacement, where particularly the context it emphasizes, which is in the displacement context, the program engineering, and our core and unique approach of localizing the learning. So that forms the three aspects of our program. And across the category, we broadly classify our communities and learners who we work with as either at the stage of pre-college, which is towards the end of their K-12 learning programs, or vocational schools, or in informal context, which will allow them to be more aware and exposed to STEM fields and enter into higher education. And also very specifically with learners who are in higher education. So as Jennifer mentioned before, we work with internally displaced youth, or commonly called in different parts of the world as street youth, or homeless or unaccompanied youth, in two different contexts in both Kenya, and currently we're starting this project in US as well. And with girl learners who are in a way displaced based on the requirements and the constraints that they face at homes, and having to be displaced to stay at boarding facilities or schools in order to continue their education. So we work with Plan International as our community partner in Zimbabwe, Senegal, and Kenya very soon. And we also work very specifically with externally displaced communities through higher education programs in Kakuma, Dadaab, and Asrak refugee camp. So we've been implementing this program since 2015 is when we started the program in Tumaini Innovation Center, working with the street children, and it has evolved over the years across these different contexts. And as you can see, as the value I mentioned about long-term collaboration and iterative process, we continue to run these programs in multiple of these contexts over and over again. So we, for example, at Tumaini, we're running our 5th iteration of the program when it has continued to recruit new students and educate and graduate them. To give a very quick snapshot of what the quantity of students and teachers we are talking about. So students across these contexts, so close to cumulatively about 600 plus students that we have worked with in the past 7 years, and about 40 teachers across the context. And the TBD is places that we are just beginning this year and yet to start running the program. So outcomes. So as a result of implementing the localized engineering and the ABCD model for learning, some of the broader outcomes we look at and have seen includes student pathways, and we've come to notice and through the democratic process, learn the different opportunities that the students are most interested in, which includes professional pathways, which directly connects to labor market in the local communities. For example, in the picture one where you're seeing one of our students at Tumaini being employed at a solar firm in the community in Eldoret and installing solar panels for their clients. We've also seen entrepreneurship as an increasingly interested approach that the students would like to take, where you can see in the second picture, one of the products that came out as a result of our engineering program, the solar home alert system, received business funding from the Kenyan government that the students were able to acquire, and now they are in the process of establishing an entrepreneurship institution to make and sell these products. And students also choose higher education. For example, Kevin, one of the learners who you saw in the video, is pursuing his high school. He's just completed his high school now and looking forward to pursuing further higher education. Product-based outcomes, we've come to see multiple community-based solutions that we've developed over the years across these contexts, including solar PV lighting, solar home alert systems, briquette press, one of the pictures you see under number 2, for making charcoal briquettes for cooking, wind power turbines that we installed in Kakuma refugee camp for powering up the learning center. And currently in Zimbabwe, the students are working on a water recycling and water treatment system for addressing water-related issues in their community. Research outcomes, we look at both socio-emotional and cognitive outcomes, and over the years we've come to understand how student agency is being developed. We look at self-efficacy, self-determination, and decision-making abilities that students develop as a result of participating in the program, and also more specific engineering cognitive outcomes such as problem-solving knowledge, professional competencies, digital literacy, and technical skills as well. And finally, teacher outcomes is very critical because teachers contribute to ensuring the sustainability of our program. And at some point when we can, like Jennifer and I can say, our role is limited now where you can continue to take and run this program. So we've come to continuously monitor and measure teacher self-efficacy and also support them through locally recognizable certifications and mentorship opportunities for the teachers. Having said all of this, we've also, over these 7 years of running this program, we've noticed multiple barriers that one has to face in working in displacement context, but also in international development generally, which I believe this community will recognize and appreciate. And we've come to also see the kind of strategies we can put in place, not exactly to say this solves the barrier completely, but it's a workaround. It's a way that we can continue to operate and function efficiently to overcome some of these barriers, which includes sustainable funding, where we've continued to emphasize and focus on collaborative relationships as the priority. So continuing to work with partners, even when we don't have active funding at the time, but more closely ensuring that there are mutual and reciprocal benefits for each of us that could be as a result of no funding as well. And to some of the other examples includes particularly understanding the emotional trauma of our learners and teachers in these contexts, and how do we ensure and make sure psychosocial support is integrated into the curriculum, into the process, which starts all the way from and is critically addressed through our pedagogical approach of ensuring there is a democratic process. And finally, policies, which continues to limit some of accessibilities and partnerships and engagement in these contexts. This is one of the things we still haven't entirely figured out a solution to, but we continue to work and understand how do we reform or better inform to the communities that through participatory approaches, which one of my colleagues, Juvenile, will talk about at the end of this presentation. So to summarize very briefly, we could put or classify our localized engineering and displacement across 4 different components. And these components thus has been co-designed and co-developed by working with the students, with the teachers, with these community partners across these locations that I showed. And as a result, we see there's the curriculum component, which includes the specific processes that we integrate, including our ABCD approach, asset mapping activities, and the course content. Then there's the technology component, where we use mobile devices for learning purposes. And we have the learning platform, like Kevin mentioned, it's called QDEX, which we use to disseminate our learning materials. And finally, we're in the process of innovating a novel customized microelectronics kit where the students are able to learn microelectronic tools and skill sets that they can apply later in the community solution process as well. And finally, the 2 other components are the teacher development, and research, both of which my colleagues Sally and Juvenile will talk in detail about. So with that, let me hand over to Sally to talk about the teacher development. Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sally from Tumaini Innovation Center, a community-based organization in Eldoret, Kenya. We work with street youth. And right now we are also going to the community to work with the vulnerable in the community. I will be talking about the localized engineering displacement lead in our organization, and we'll be focusing on the how the program has been for us. I will talk about 2 areas, the teachers' development, as well as the role of the teachers. As you can see in the photo, that is the whole team of the teachers who have been teaching the engineering program to our students. And every one of us has is an expert in different fields. Just briefly, just to give a background on the engineering program that you have had in Tumaini, we started off in 2017, if I'm not wrong. We were previously just normal teachers, one teaching education with a background of education, the other one was a social worker, and myself a program coordinator, and we had no background in engineering whatsoever. So when we were engaged in teaching, at first it was a bit challenging for us because we did not know what exactly we were supposed to do. And from this side of Kenya, we leave engineering to those people who have gone to universities, pursued a degree in engineering, but not people with different educational backgrounds. So in 2017, when we started the program, we were not so sure how the program was going to run, and hence there was a need for us to create a community of teachers that were interested in teaching the engineering outside of their comfort zone. Now, on the photo, as you can see, on the left, we are having the 3 teachers who started, and also the director and our finance director who joined in just to see what the engineering was all about. At the beginning, we were just learning what we were going to cover in classes, or rather what the program looked like or what it was all about. And I think the expectations were more of start first by learning, which you take some time, and then you can go back to class. However, with time, we have grown from 3 teachers to 10 teachers. And it has been, we have seen the growth even in the teachers who began. in not only sharpening their skills in the classroom, but also becoming engineers. That means we were now not only teaching in class, but we also applying the engineering principles that we were learning. We are currently 10 teachers teaching the engineering curriculum, and we were so glad to have the instructors who teach the vocational courses joining in, and they brought in their expertise, they brought in their skill set, they brought in the resources and their engineering background to make the community of practice for the teachers to have a vast resource of knowledge and ideas. So the community of practice came to equip the teacher with more skills and also with the knowledge of how to teach engineering to a marginalized group. And the community of practice has three phases, as all of us have had to go through. The first part is on reflective practice. Reflective practice basically for us is done before and after class. By that I mean, before we go to class, each of the 10 teachers, we have a journal that we have to answer questions such as, what are your expectations? What do you want to achieve in the class? How will you know that you have achieved this class? What are the activities that you're going to do in the class? In Tumaini, we call it more or less of a lesson plan. This is what I intend to go and cover in the classroom within the time that I have been given. And after the class, we also have a part where we have to reflect on how the class went. What were the outcomes? Were you able to meet your objectives? What went well? What did not go well? And what do we need to change or improve on? Something that we have found very useful over time is every week we meet as the COP teachers once a week before we have the class session for that week, and discuss about our previous classes, where we reflect through our journals, read each other's journals, and discuss about how was the class for you. What were some of the things that you thought went well? What are some of the things that you think other teachers could benefit from some of the things that you have done? And so the reflective practice has really helped us not just to become better teachers, but also to know other practices that other teachers use in their classroom to deliver the content. Once that is done, the next phase involves action research with the students. We have our curriculum runs for 1 year, and we have 3 terms with the students. We introduce the engineering program in the first term, and therefore from the first term, when we have identified a problem, we have to work through with the students, gathering data on how to solve that. And at the end of the third term, we have to have the students displaying some of the projects that they have worked on throughout the year, so to the community. We do this to encourage the students to be innovative, creative, and as Dinesh mentioned also, to venture into entrepreneurship so that they do not just rely on employment. And we have been having an open day at the end of every school year, where we invite the community to come in and see the projects that the students have been able to do. And if there are those who are interested to buy some of the solutions, or some of them who are interested in working with our students, or even employers who would want to employ our students, they are welcome to come and just talk and have a conversation with our students on how they got to that point. And the third phase of the community of practice is on mentorship. As I mentioned before, we started as 3 teachers, and between 2017 and 2019, we only had 3 teachers. And so when we started having the new teachers coming on board, the older teachers had to teach.
Looks like we've lost Sally. I'll keep monitoring on the back end. If I could ask Dinesh, if you want to continue sharing, given your involvement in this research.
Absolutely, yeah. As Sally was mentioning, at the final phase of the teacher development program, but within the community of practice, the senior teachers or they become mentors to the incoming teachers, and then they continue to support within the communities to grow together. And that's the role now Sally has been performing with the new teachers and doing peer teaching, peer evaluation, and working in designing and implementing the classes together. I believe in the next slide, Sally had some specific information about what kind of roles the teachers perform within the engineering class, which includes working directly with the students on the projects to solve the community problem, applying as a student themselves in a way, acquiring these skills and applying to solve the problem. Then continuing to act as a curriculum designer, through which they are continuing to give feedback and through their reflections, just informing what changes need to be brought to the curriculum. And finally, as I mentioned before, one of the new important approaches being taken is to integrate the local knowledge of both the teachers and learners, and how do they, within their own communities, solve problems, and how that knowledge could be integrated within the curriculum.
And it looks like Sally's back. So if we want to, Sally, are you able to pick up from where Dinesh was sharing?
You could share the next one, I believe. And Sally, you can talk about the challenges.
Yeah. Sally, are you able to hear us?
No,
We've lost her again.
she's having issues with the network.
Yeah, I'll continue to work with her if you can share
okay.
the challenges, Dinesh. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, definitely. This would be particularly important that the teachers themselves shared, but let me try and do justice to that. Some of the challenges that the teachers have continued to identify and think through and work with us, first about this perspective of engineering as a really complex and challenging field and subject. So there is an initial resistance and anxiety towards approaching and engaging in the content, with the content and the curriculum itself. And one of the ways that this has been continuing to being addressed more efficiently now is through this mentorship setup between senior and incoming teachers. And also some of the complexities with the curriculum, particularly with some of the very specific technical language and content. Sometimes when they try to localize it without understanding the full meaning of it, it becomes challenging. Or trying to translate, let's say, for example, in Kiswahili, some of the very specific technical content that's a very specific engineering language has been a challenge for the teachers. So this is where one of the places the local knowledge comes in as important as we recognize. Then the understanding the individual students and how so how do we evaluate students' progress, and how do we evaluate and assess students' growth also has been one of the challenges that we continue to think about and work about. And also it takes more time sometimes because of the access to resources and also availability of time and materials and multiple uncertainties while working in a challenging situation like displacement. Takes more time to implement the project. So sometimes when we work directly with communities or clients to solve their problems, this becomes an important challenge that we try and navigate. Finally, I believe there's another video that Charlie wanted to share of one of her students talking about how learning engineering and applying it has been an important resource for him. So if you could share the video.
Some people in society came to see how to fix the solar. Then he told the teachers, when I need a solar, me and teachers go to fix the solars for him.
Great. So we heard about how Wahome, one of the students, was able to apply and also see that the community is recognizing the skills and their abilities, and to be able to partner and closely work with them. So with that, let me transfer to Juvenile to talk about our research part of our program. Juvenile, are you here?
Yes, Danish, can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, good. Thank you. My name is Juvenile Monihankuye. Joining from Kenya. Actually, I'm based in Kakuma refugee camp, where I'm the Director of Youth Education and Sports, a refugee-led organization that was established in 2020 by a team of refugees. Our vision is to see a world where youth can achieve their dreams regardless of where they come from. And we aim to achieve this by transforming marginalized communities, by offering access to higher education programs to improve employability. So I decided not to connect my video because my internet is not very good. So I will present with an audio. So at Youth Education and Sports, we have three main departments. The first one is the implementation of higher education programs that are provided by higher education partners. And the second one is a program on socio-emotional learning. And the third one is research. So on the research pillar, we conduct research on our own project that we implement, but also we conduct research on projects that are proposed by partners. So research in refugee camp has been a point of conversation, and there has been a high need of evidences due to the complexity of the settings, like in camps and other settings of emergencies. And this has led a range of stakeholders and partners like higher education institutions, NGOs, and refugee organizations to think ways that research can be, research in those environments can be localized to make sure that the communities can also be involved. So on the first slide, we have seen a picture of student researchers who were following a training on the implementation of participatory evaluation research. And after testing and experience sharing, participatory action research was found more efficient in those setups. And some of the gain that we have with this approach in refugee setups was that it is inclusive. And we have found like students who are part of the community come together with NGOs and other stakeholders to design research. And the community members especially are involved through all the stages of the research. So the second point was that we found that the participatory action research fills the knowledge gap and brings new perspective. There are the community members participate and are able to decide like what are the topics that need to be researched, and what are the main information that we need for a particular topic. We also found that by using the participatory action research, responsibilities are shared. We see a refugee-led organization at the last mile conducting research, but this refugee-led organization does not have the competency to apply for research authorizations, ethical responsibilities. But now we see a refugee-led organization that is hosted by an NGO that represents on a legal level. We also see on the other side NGOs that brings funds to be able to support the activity of the research. And we can also see the institution like universities that come and train the students who are refugees to be able to carry out research activities in their settings, because they are the ones who understand the environment. So this also helps kind of ownership, because by training the students to carry on the research, it helps the students to communicate and collaborate with the community to own the project and be able to participate in making recommendations, but also participate in the implementation of actions that will have been taken. Next. Yeah, like I was discussing before, we have the roles of teachers, students, and researcher and the refugee-led organizations, because they are the key stakeholders. If you look at the student researchers themselves, they are part of the communities, and they are the ones who are more affected by the areas, the issues that they feel like need to be researched. So that's how they become key stakeholders, and they participate in identifying and defining the issue that need to be researched. They're the ones who carry the research, but also contribute with local and relevant knowledge. So by having them as community members to participate in the research, it helps to make contextualize the research, to be able to come up with actions and the recommendations that we need help to transform and improve lives in those environments. Next. Okay. Currently, currently students have activities that they are working on, and it's a continuation of a journey that the team of student researchers have started, because in 2019, the team of students went through a training on conducting research, and they were able to conduct the research on the implementation of connected learning in emergencies. And after the research, students were able to go through all the stages of the process, by designing the research, by conducting the research themselves, coming up with the reports after doing the analysis, and be able to present the preliminary findings to stakeholders. So currently now we have a number of projects that students are working on. In the middle, we have a picture where students met with the students from Tumaini Center, discussing on a research on urban refugee education that was committed by UNHCR in Eldoret and Nairobi, that's in Kenya. The students also are working on another project, that is the Spencer project, a research project, which will be a continuation of the evaluation of the implementation of a connected learning program in the settings of refugees. There is also another program of research that students will be working on, which is the decolonizing peace education in Africa. So all this in the process, the students participants gain a number of skills that help them to go back and identify other community issues that affect them, that also where they participate in finding solutions and be able to work with the community to improve lives conditions in their communities. Yeah. Thank you.
So with that, I want to thank first my colleagues, Dinesh, Sally, and Juvenal, for sharing their expertise and really weaving together this picture of integrated research and practice. And I want to thank everyone who joined us here for the presentation. We have a few minutes for questions. So if you'd like to share them in the chat box, I can moderate those. I know Sally's been able to join back. so she can respond to questions as well. But feel free to either use the reaction button to raise your hand if you'd like to verbally ask your question, or feel free to share it in the chat box. And we have time for maybe a couple of questions here. Paul, I see your hand. Please go ahead. If you'd like to unmute. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I was just saying thank you for the
Oh,
presentation.
great. Thank you for the kudos. We appreciate it, and we appreciate your participation here. Juveniles shared the link for youth education and sports, and we'll be sure to share that in the resources for the session as well. Any other questions from the audience?
I have a question. I'm sorry that my my hand raising is not working, but I just wanted to ask, in the program, thank you. I saw that there was that you have some programs directed towards youth and some programs directed towards adults. I just wondered if there's only a few adults, or did you find a lot of adults that were already at the university, the higher education level, that were displaced and that were looking for some kind of assistance?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jill. Thank you so much. So the question about youth and adults, I'll give a broad answer, and that is that our programs, as Dinesh's graphic kind of pointed to, we've worked with students in early secondary, all the way up to a broad conception of higher education, which includes youth who have just transitioned into tertiary education, as well as Jill, you alluded to, older adults who are maybe transitioning back in, who have experienced displacement. I'll give one example from our work in the Azraq refugee camp, and then I'll ask Juvenal, Sally, and Dinesh to each comment. In the Azraq refugee camp, which is pretty much 100% Syrian refugees, we had the whole range of students who were I remember one young woman who was, I think, 19 and had had her university studies interrupted. So she was actually in a technical STEM field, and saw this as an opportunity to kind of restart a very similar aligned pathway. And we had one of our oldest students had been, I think he had been an airplane mechanic for a really long time, was much older, but saw this as an opportunity to revisit and to have something to do, because there weren't a lot of opportunities for even things to do, let alone skill building in the camp. So was transitioning back for a number of different reasons at an older age. But we have seen the range, and that's really been one of the affordances of this curriculum, has been its adaptability based on what the student and what the learner's goals are. Juvenal, maybe you can comment on that as well. And then Sally, maybe you can say a little bit about the range of ages too. Juvenal, are you able to unmute and maybe comment a little bit on the range of ages of students in Kakuma?
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. Because we implement this program in a situation of emergencies. So what we do currently, because we are supporting the students accessing higher education to from Kenyan universities that are sponsored by the African Higher Education in Emergencies. So this is a situation where we focus on the university requirements, especially like the grade requirements, without putting more focus on kind of what age the student need to have, because we understand that refugees have come a long way from their countries, and yeah, maybe they were following or pursuing other education in their countries. So whoever has the ability to go and pursue the diploma and meets the criteria of the university, so will be given a chance to go to continue with his education regardless of the age. Thank you.
Thank you, Juvenal. And since we're just about out of time, Delmira, I see your question in the chat. Can I ask Sally to respond to the question about keeping the mentoring teacher program going? And Barbara, I thank you for the AHEGE link, and we'll put that in our resources as well. So Sally, if you could have the final word about keeping the mentoring teacher program going.
On the chat, or just you can just share something small.
Just share something small as the last word verbally. Thank you.
So I think the continuous weekly meetings really help to keep the mentoring program going on to every new teacher who has shown interest to the program. So they are attached to an older teacher who has been in the program before, and they continuously work together by pairing in classes and even in their respective journals. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And I want to thank you all. I think we're just about done.